I the jerk for telling my BFF to stand up to their boyfriend? My best friend has a boyfriend who is 22 years old. They have been dating for 14 months now and live about 3 hours apart. Initially, he was super nice and kind, very accepting of all her friends. However, a few months in, he wasn't comfortable with her going out with our friend group if I wasn't there, stating that I am the only other girl in a committed relationship and he trusts me. As time went on, she would frequently make plans with me only to cancel last minute with a lame excuse. It has reached the point where she is lying to me, claiming she has to work. 3 weeks ago, we finally went for a coffee before work, and she confided in me that he guilts her into staying home. He tells her she should do what makes her happy, but he's not comfortable even if it's just the two of us going out. Apparently, he is afraid of other guys approaching us. He even installed a location app on her phone and messages her if she stays at a place for too long, despite knowing her exact location. Recently, one of our friends had a birthday, and she organized a girls' trip. When he saw the group chat on her phone, he started crying and didn't speak to her for 6 hours. Every time she doesn't go out with me or us, he brings her flowers and gifts as if he is rewarding her for not doing what she wants. She hasn't visited her parents alone in over a year. He wants her to quit her job so she can move to his town. She is actually very outgoing and free-spirited. A week ago, she asked me whether my boyfriend and I allow each other to go out alone. I simply told her that we don't allow each other anything. We have an adult relationship and discuss these things. Most of the time, if I need a girls' night out or he needs a guy's night out, we just inform each other and share our live locations. A few days ago, I told her that she is losing herself, and I'm scared that I'm going to lose her. I also advised her to stand up for herself because a 22-year-old is controlling her from a town 3 hours away. She said she understands where I'm coming from but loves him, and he treats her right. She wants all of us to meet for coffee and talk through this so that he can hear my concerns. Am I the You are not the jerk. He is controlling and abusive, and she definitely needs to dump him immediately. You've already expressed your concerns, so just keep the lines of communication open. Hopefully, she sees the light and gets out of this relationship soon. Am I the jerk for telling my partner that their family made a bad impression after they told me the same thing? My boyfriend and I went to his sister's wedding over the weekend. It was the first time I met his family. On the way home yesterday, James was talking about meeting my family sometime soon, and I said maybe when my dad is next in town. James joked he hoped he'd pass the dad test, and I said my dad isn't that kind of parent. I made some joke about this weekend being a moral test, and if I passed. James got kind of squirmy and said it wasn't a big deal, but I didn't make the best impression on his family. I obviously asked what he meant. Things I apparently did that were faux pas. Woke up too early and dressed for breakfast. Chose to go to pick up food with my boyfriend and his dad rather than staying with his mom and sisters. Wasn't friendly enough to the kids. Didn't eat enough. Said no to too many offers. Snacks, tea, shower gel. Bought wine. I liked at a supermarket now. I completely respect their right to feel how they feel about the things that I did. I may not agree, but between cultural and personality differences, if they just didn't like me, that is fair enough. However, I feel like it was a bit unnecessary of James to mention this to me. It seemed like he was fishing for some kind of apology from me. I said as much, and James said he was just being honest. I said that in the interest of being honest, his family made a bad impression on me too. Things I mentioned that made me uncomfortable. Badgering me about my eating habits, calling me stunted because I went to boarding school. His mother not allowing me to do anything for myself, such as making my own tea, repeatedly trying to convince me to play with his sister's kids and telling them to bother me when I said no. His teenage cousins making extremely inappropriate remarks to me at the wedding. The whole family getting absolutely paralytic. He said he was just trying to make the point that I should loosen up when I next see his family, not saying there was something wrong with me, but I had basically called his family uncouth thugs. I disagree there's any difference in what was said. Am I the a-hole for responding to his comment with my own feelings? I think you are not in the wrong here. Your boyfriend's family being controlling, judgmental, and disrespectful is not a British thing. It's just them being us. It's normal to offer to do things for a guest, but if the guest insists on doing it themselves, it's respectful to let them. Calling you cruel while they were the ones making inappropriate comments is hypocritical. If this is how they behave, it's a good indicator that your boyfriend might not be long-term material. Am I the jerk for not acting as a B&B for a visiting friend? My friend asked if he could come visit me and stay in my apartment on my couch. I said that would be fine before knowing he was planning to stay for 9 days. Despite this, I'd already agreed, so I let it be. Initially, his presence wasn't too bothersome. However, it quickly became apparent that he expected me to drive him around, provide meals, and spend all my time with him. When he arrived, we went grocery shopping and I ended up paying for most of the groceries. Sometimes, when we were at home, I would retreat to my room for some alone time, which seemed to bother him as he expected me to always be with him in the living room. He made comments and seemed offended whenever I tried to have some personal space. Eventually, he confronted me about this and asked if I was ignoring him. I explained that I'm introverted and need my alone time. The next day, I had to work and told him he would have to make his own dinner. This upset him and he passive-aggressively commented that it was clear I wasn't going to make meals for him. I confronted him, stating that I didn't agree to be his personal chef. During his visit, he only paid for a few things, while I covered most expenses. He relied on me for transportation and expected me to entertain him, even while I was working. It feels like he is taking advantage of my hospitality, expecting me to cater to his needs without prior agreement. I could have communicated my boundaries better, but I didn't anticipate these issues arising. Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk. This guy's expectations are just insane, especially staying for 9 days without contributing anything. House guests like fish begin to stink after 3 days. Everyone knows that. Also, expecting you to be his chauffeur is batshit crazy. That's what Uber is for. You made it way too easy for him to walk all over you. Am I the jerk for telling my friend how I feel? Over time, she consistently would always have a drink, alcohol, when she came over. She would nearly drink half of an entire bottle and sometimes a whole one. I mentioned in passing if she could bring some of her own food drinks to help out sometimes because over time, the food drinks add up and I couldn't keep up. I would cook nearly every time she came over. She would basically be at my house for 3 days nearly every week for the first few months we were friends. I sometimes would go over to her place, but not nearly as much as she came over. For a while, everything was fine until one week she kept asking me to go check on her daughter while she and her husband were at work. The first few times I was understanding and didn't have any issue. After the 4th time in a row of her asking, I said, I have dropped food off and stuff a few times now just out of care and love for you guys. I'm sorry, it just wasn't meant to be a regular thing. She is more than welcome to come to my house and chill out. I just want to chill over there. I'm exhausted from waking up from the dogs wanting to go outside and cleaning up all the messes. My dogs were sick at the time, the last 72 hours. After I said that, she shut down, barely spoke to me, and anytime I would ask if she was okay or even if we were, she never would reply. When she finally responded to me, she said her feelings got hurt when I said not an everyday thing. She also said that she overstepped and doesn't really want to talk about it, that's why she's been giving me space. I said to her in response that, I'm sorry your feelings got hurt. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to make sure you knew I wasn't going to visit your daughter while you and Josh, her husband, are at work every day. That's what I meant. I didn't mean it badly or intended for it to come off rude. I don't mind doing it occasionally. I love you guys like you're all family. You didn't overstep necessarily. I just don't want to feel like I'm being used. Not that you were, but I don't want to feel like that. It's happened before in my life, and I don't want our friendship to end. I'm a giver. I like helping and making people feel good. People in my past have always taken advantage of that. It was radio silence for a while. We didn't hang out for a long time. I reached out again, as she said that I hurt her feelings and that she was giving me space. What do you think? Did I say something wrong? I think you were not in the wrong here. The friend was consistently drinking a lot and expecting to be taken care of without contributing anything. Asking her to bring her own food and drink sometimes is not unreasonable. It's understandable to feel used after being there for her repeatedly without reciprocation, and it's important to set boundaries to maintain a healthy friendship. Am I the jerk for not supporting all the choices my child made over their wedding weekend? My daughter Anastasia got married a week ago. In the months leading up to the event, she was understandably anxious, which her father and I tried to help her through as much as possible. Originally, Anastasia planned on having a wedding weekend. She married on a Sunday, but wanted everyone there that Thursday to kick off the weekend with a few activities. Most guests were coming from across the country. First, she changed the welcome barbecue to basically just cold cuts and chips, even when her dad and I offered to buy the stuff she originally promised. But she said no. Then she canceled all the activities and said she was too stressed to do any of them. She said it was nothing the family did, just her stress. While I understood her side, I did also understand the side of her guests who were upset. They spent all this money to come early, have accommodations for a full weekend, and now they had very little to do. Then, a few members of the bridal party who had flown in out of state with plus ones stated they felt bad for their partners for basically abandoning them. They ended up skipping a few events because Anastasia had told them to treat Thursday and Friday as a vacation, then took that back and expected them to ignore their partners. Anastasia was upset and began venting to me. I tried to be understanding at first. Eventually, she only had myself, her maid of honor, and one bridesmaid attending a movie night she arranged. The bridesmaid ended up leaving early because she felt bad her partner had basically been cooped up in their hotel alone. She and the other bridesmaids promised they'd be there for the sleepover they had always planned for the night before the wedding, so everyone could get ready together morning of. After this, Anastasia threw a fit, saying she felt abandoned by most of her bridal party. Her maid of honor was reassuring her that she did the right thing, and they were being assholes. They both looked to me and my husband for support. Eventually, I said I understood her bridesmaids. I also understood why our family was upset. While it's understandable she's stressed and why she didn't want to do the originally planned events, she did cause a lot of people to waste money and time coming down here, as well as put her bridal party in an awkward position. Anastasia refused to discuss it more. The rest of the weekend went on as she wanted. The wedding was beautiful and everyone had a good time. Then Anastasia and her husband went on a short honeymoon. They returned on Friday and we had dinner on Saturday. At one point, Anastasia confronted me privately and said I was wrong for not supporting her. She said I was supposed to be on her side. I said I would have been, but she was teetering on bridezilla territory. Just because it's her special day doesn't mean how she handled things was okay. She insists that I was in the wrong for not backing her up. Am I the asshole? She was very rude to the guests who went to so much trouble and expense to travel for something as ridiculously egotistical as a wedding weekend. Her special weekend became their nightmare. She even treated her bridal party poorly, who no doubt incurred expenses and spent a lot of time accommodating her nonsense. It's good that someone was brave enough to tell her the truth about herself. Am I the jerk for stealing $30 from my parents? When I was 16 years old, I was working for a coffee shop. I made decent money and some tips that would get me through the week when my employers started to cut my hours. I was making a lot of change from this, which added up to about $30. I had been putting them in an old cider jar. However, about 2 months before I had quit my job, my mother noticed that her change jar was looking pretty empty. She accused me of stealing the change from her because I had so much in the jar. My stepfather, on the other hand, had never been able to keep a job for long. But once my mother's money had started going missing, he all of a sudden was coming to take me to school with a bunch of food wrappers in the car. Every day there would be a new container from Quick Star or some fast food joint. He sometimes even bought my stepbrother dinner just because, even though he knew my mom had made dinner beforehand. I had started to connect the dots and realized that the missing money must have been stolen by my stepfather. But when I confronted him about it, he got defensive and said that it wasn't my business what he does because it's his house. He's my dad, and he's an adult. He is an adult, and I was a minor then, but he had never really been my dad or helped out my mom enough for me to consider him to be even partially the owner of the house. I wanted to tell my mom about this to clear my name, but I do have a history of lying about stupid things. But when I begged my mom to give me back my money, everything kind of blew up. I told her that her husband was an abusive, lazy freeloader who doesn't take care of his kids properly and that he's a terrible person. I told her everything that he has done to me, like threatening to divorce my mom after I told her that he went through my room. I also told her about the names he was calling me and how I felt unsafe with him whenever he got mad. She told me that I was ungrateful for everything he had done for me and that I should leave those things in the past. I then told her that he was stealing the money from her, and then she called me a liar. I said some things to her that I regret now, like saying I hated her, which was entirely untrue. But now, every time I ask for my money back, I get called a stupid liar. Everyone had turned against me, and I don't know why. I know it was only $30, but it goes beyond that. So, am I the asshole? Even if someone thinks you did something you weren't guilty of, that doesn't make you an asshole. It's tough dealing with a terrible stepfather and a mother in denial. Being falsely accused by someone who should love you the most is a cruel injustice. Just hold your ground, even though the situation seems unresolvable. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.